LeiLani Cauthen again, CEO of the Learning Counsel News Media and Research Organization, and I'm here in Arkansas, which is now my home state, Little Rock, and I'm super excited to introduce you to, first of all, we have with us Shana, who is the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning and Secondary Education for Little Rock School District.
Correct.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. That's not a short title. Does that mean a lot of work?
Yes.
Yes. I'd like it to be shorter. Yes. And then we have Dr. Jeremy Owoh, who's the Superintendent, Jacksonville North Pulaski School District.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Now that's a shorter title.
It is. That means I have great people working for me in the district.
See, there you go. Okay, good. And then I've got Dr. Eric Saunders, who's the Assistant Superintendent for District Support from Arkansas Department of Education.
Yes, ma'am.
They are. Okay, that's also a long title.
Yeah.
So you got a little bit to do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, good. And Dr. Torrye Hooper, who's the Deputy Superintendent from North Little Rock School District in Arkansas.
Yep.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Okay, so this is going to be a good time. We're going to have a good time talking about things. I want to start out with each of you giving us a little bit of an intro of your role and then your vision. Does that sound good? Is that going to work for you?
So I guess Jeremy goes first.
Too late. You're first now. You have to be first. Are we all on camera? Yeah?
Oh, I'm first for real.
Yeah.
So, in my role as superintendent, I really believe that my first priority is to carry out the vision and mission that the board has come together as a collective unit to develop. And to put it to action and then support, as I said earlier, the people who actually are on the ground doing the work, and to make sure, and I always tell my staff that my job is to remove any barriers or roadblocks that may hinder them from providing the very best educational experience for our young people. And so that's what I do on the face, put out fires and to make sure that my educators, my leaders have the right resources, the support that they need to do the job that they are charged to do every day in front of our young people. And so when we have the vision and mission, making sure that those resources and support those vision, mission, and commitment statements. And as we adjust through this day and age, even life after the pandemic, making sure that we provide the necessary resources and support for the needs, not just the academic needs, but any mental health needs, social needs that our young people and our staff members may need at this time.
So can I just say, you're Mr. Alignment. Does that make sense?
It does.
And you're also like Mr. Shepherd of all the programs. Okay, I got you now. Okay, so you still want to wait?
No, I can go.
You going? You're good now. Okay, good.
I just like to pick up on Owoh. So if he is Mr. Alignment, then I think my role is Mrs. Support. So in my role in teaching and learning and also in secondary education, my job is to support people that work in buildings. What do we need to provide, in my mind, what is the floor, the bare minimum for students, which is high quality instructional experiences and high quality service. So that's the floor that everyone gets. So what do teachers need? What do support staff need? What do building administrators need to make that happen in schools? And so my job is to support them with resources, with professional learning, with mentorships, with technology. Dr. Taylor is part of my team, as well as Ms. Neal, to make those things happen in schools.
Good. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, so coming over to you, sir, Eric.
Yeah. So in my current role at the state level, I oversee all the districts in the state, especially a lot of focus on those that need additional help. A lot of it on fiscal services. So ultimately, everything kind of comes back to the dollar, but not that is the end goal, because kind of the vision, the whole point, that I ever got into education was to serve students and student learning.
Yeah.
And so, we're not banks, we're educational institutions, and money is just a necessary way to do it. But, trying to show them ways how to align what they use. And I say what they use, essentially it's their staff, personnel, and dollars to their needs. And their needs should be student achievement. I mean, that should be the ultimate goal of every school and every district. And so trying to support districts in that endeavor.
I like this, because what you're saying, now you're gonna be in my mind now, Mr. Resource Innovator.
Okay.
Like how you use which, I'm sorry I didn't give you a nickname yet, but I'll come back to you.
What's your name, Lisa?
I gave myself.
Oh, that's right. Support, Resource Innovator, alignment. Okay, Torrye, you're on deck.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. So, as my colleagues mentioned, one of my goals is to ensure that we are aligned to the school board, which in turn is aligned to the vision of the superintendent, which is Dr. Pulaski. And with that, my role is to ensure that the various departments that I support, that they align to the school board, the superintendent, and in turn, again, are supporting the principals, leaders, as well as the students within the building. And our job is to ensure that there is an effective principal in every building and an effective teacher in every classroom. With that, again, trying to eliminate the barriers that we may experience, but at the same time, trying to ensure that we are innovative in our approaches. In addition to that, trying to ensure that we think outside the box, especially in this new era that we're in.
I like it, but I think your key word there was effective. Right, so this is obviously another key. So we get some real keys here. Like the 4 things you guys are talking about are really the keys. But I'm gonna challenge you now. You were here earlier when we were talking about hybrid logistics. I'm gonna go into a model conversation with you as leaders. So don't take this too personally, right? But Learning Council research is really showing that the future is not necessarily let or support only, but lead. Because it's very, very stormy out there, right? Like the loss of students, the lack of alignment, right? Like people, they're just out, they're off grid. They're gonna homeschool, they're gonna do something else because they learned during the pandemic that there was an off grid world and they explored it and they went, right? And they're still going. And they learn differently in this generation. You know, they're shutting you off every 8 minutes or so and trying to go on to the next thing because their minds have been trained into that, right? Through scrolling on social media, right? And their teachers are losing it and achievement's down. This is a perfect storm, right? So how you execute the structure of it and how you lead people to a new structured land is emotional. They'll fight you on it, they'll threaten to quit. How do you do that anyway? You see what I'm saying? And even go to a new structure to even know where you're going. Because we talked about hybrid logistics, and if you guys don't know what that is yet, just trust me, it's different. We called it also Uberization of learning. It's using technology to cohort automatically and put people in homerooms. Then they magically go out for an intersection with a teacher and it's a live moment. It's not all online. It's a different form of hybrid. It's the nirvana of the future. It's like, this is from research, right? You don't have to believe me or even think that that would be the model that you would go to, right? Because you might like to do something else. That's fine. But the structure built around the individual student is what I'm talking about. How do you do that? How do you lead through all this mess? And I can see you want to go, so you go.
Well, my first comment was that it's definitely important that we have to look at the individual student
Yes.
and his or her needs. And I think you need multiple options and opportunities for learning in a school setting. And I think, like you said, one thing that the pandemic did show us that we need other learning experiences, learning options, because all of our students learn differently. One of the things that I've noticed, just as the superintendent in Jacksonville, that we have students who flourish in a virtual learning environment and some who did not. Just like even with the ALE, which is really in essence an alternative learning environment, we have students who flourish in a smaller learning environment and some who are very social and they feed off people and the collaboration. And so I think one of the things that we definitely have to do is make sure that we have those multiple learning opportunities for all of our scholars, and then give them option, which causes us to be quiet and listen to our students. And a lot of times, the adults are quick to tell the students what they need and how they should learn, versus now in this day and time, we need to do less talking and more listening to our young people, and so that we can develop the right learning experience for them, because they're learning completely different than the way we've learned. And so again, from the pandemic, we found out that how we're providing the instruction is not the best way. And what we consider technology, the technology that we used in the classroom wasn't truly technology, and it wasn't implementation. And so we just need to make sure we provide those opportunities. And the first thing is, I was going to say, is to build those relationships, which means you have to get to know the people that you're supporting, the people that you're serving.
Yeah, I like you already. Yeah, I think that was awesome what you just said, and profound, more than maybe you know. Because this is real. I mean, moving to a student centricity is a structural, it's an emotional, it's a how you do it, and like the whole thing. This is the whole 9 yards of leadership. This isn't the, I probably shouldn't say this, but isn't the fluffy leadership of old. Like, I have this nifty initiative, you know, I'm kind of bored with that. This is hard.
It's not for the kind-hearted.
I wanted to piggyback off of what Dr. Owoh said, and just, so education is not my first profession, it's actually my second. But one of the things that I learned from being in a business industry is that you have to continue to grow and innovate and change with the needs of your customers. And that's one shift that we really need to see in education, because historically we've had this pool of customers. No matter what we did, the law requires students to come to school. Public schools were free, the students were coming. And one of the things that we've learned through the pandemic is that they have other choices now, and they're making other choices. And as a result, we're seeing declining enrollment in our schools. We're seeing students opt for homeschool, for other educational options. So how, from the business standpoint, do we compete with these other opportunities and offerings that students have? How do we enhance and change and innovate our product that we're providing for students to make it more attractive for today's students? I haven't been in the classroom as a teacher in K-12 for quite a while, but there's a vast difference between, I always joke and say my technology was an overhead projector. And so to see and that wasn't 20 years ago, that was 12 years ago. So when you see the differences in what we're doing in classrooms now, just 12 years ago, and still how far behind we are in some of the things that we're doing in terms of technology and instructional technology in the classroom, we have a ways to go. So I think it ties to what he said, is realizing that our students are our customers and our parents. What is it that they're looking for? How do we tailor what we're offering to the needs and interests of our students? Not just because there's so many different things out there that we can do, but specifically in my district, in his district, what are our students saying they need or want to see in terms of classroom instruction, and how can we provide that?
Yeah, I love this thinking. Yeah, I like him now. I really love this too. This is moving up the scale. This is good. Okay, good. All right, Dr. Saunders.
I agree with what they said. I think from a different perspective right now, coming off, I'll do it from the fiscal perspective. And I think we're in a great opportunity. I think it's going to be very difficult though, is we are looking at ESSER funds. And so basically ESSER funds.
Big money there, big money.
We've never had that opportunity before, that much money. And you had ARP funds, the last part of that, which 20% was set aside for learning loss. And lots of conversations, a lot of districts have frankly told me they've had difficulty getting creative enough to find ways to spend the money. And
you're going to tell them all about this big.
And so, but one thing that we have to be very responsible about is basically each district needs to have an ESSER exit strategy.
Yeah, very true.
We need to think, we put in before, after-school programs, we put in tutoring, we put in summer schools, we bought this software, that software. We've done all these things with ESSER funds, and basically, in some districts, they'll be done at the end of this year, or at the end of this fiscal year. And so, my question then to them is, well, which of those practices are you going to cut? Are you going to cut all of them that you've been paying with ESSER funds? Or are you going to continue? And so I think we're at a great opportunity that we have to be responsible enough to look at each one of those practices and truly determine how effective was this? How effective was that? Because if it was effective, we need to find a way to continue it. And if it wasn't, we need to move away from it because we're going to have to prioritize. Those funds are no longer available. So we got to look at what's most effective and what's helping the kids.
Okay, so I got to comment on that before I come to you. I would contend that most of them have not been effective.
Yep.
Right. Because what has been happening is in an age of structural shift, where people want something else, but they can't define it, without rethinking structure and thinking only in a dichotomous way, either online or in the building, which is not the way it should be, and not thinking down the middle, how can I be differently? And just running new programs. Let's have an after-school program. Let's address literacy. Let's address anything. Not that all those things are not good. They're all good. But they're programmatic and they're not structural.
And cookie cutter.
And they're cookie cutter, and they're how well your people can execute it. So you're executing through people. You haven't transitioned to be the network, to execute through technology and reverse engineer people more efficiently and use your people and take the burden off your people for crying out loud, right? Use them for humanity. That's your brand, you're human. So my question would be, when you're looking at the drop in funds, are you asking that? Are you saying, how much did you really change?
Yeah.
Or did you just blow this money?
Yep.
Because that's what you probably did. Gave everybody a raise, ran huge programs, and now you gotta cut it all back. How's that feel? You didn't change structure when you had the opportunity to do it. That's the real challenge. What do you think of that?
It's tough. Lots of questions.
Yeah, don't make me come down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really the thing.
But this is not the first time. Many of us who have been in school improvement buildings, we had a grant called School Improvement Grant with multi-million dollars. So but the issue is when you give schools and people the funds without support and resources, they're going to they may have money, but there's no guidance or support or knowledge to show them how to effectively implement that and then to build sustainability. Same thing happened with these ESSER funds. You give them money, but no guidance, no support,
There's
no
no real
resources.
leadership.
Right. And the guidelines change month to month, year to year. So.
And then you're responding instead of actually planning for innovative change. You're actually responding to, during the pandemic, I shifted from being a principal to central office. And as a principal, I would say for sure, I spent that year responding to how do I shift when I don't have teachers? How do I shift when half of my devices come back broken? How do I shift to programs that are going to be of best use to my students? How do I shift and make sure students have access to technology in their homes when they can't come to school? So instead of being able to forward plan, in many, many cases, we have been responding to one disaster, one emergency, one crisis after another, which doesn't leave a lot of room to do the things that you mentioned that I know need to be done. But where's the time where we can actually do that? Because prior to doing that, there's a whole piece of training and retraining and rethinking that needs to be done with staff in buildings, because this is new.
Yeah, but you gotta lead, right? You
absolutely. So I'm saying that to say that I feel like most districts, for me anyway, we're getting to a point now where I can start moving forward with the planning pieces of it. How do you prepare teachers? Because even if we have all of this money to put the appropriate things in place, do we have mind shift? Have we shifted from the thinking in education, which makes people feel overwhelmed that we're doing things on top of when we need to move to instead of? We need to stop doing this and start doing
And that
this.
is exactly the thing that you're doing. So when I hear somebody say, like, I'm putting out fire, I'm putting out that fire, I'm putting out this fire, I got 17 emergency calls today, you know what that tells me? Your structure is wrong. You are Kmart in the days of Amazon. You get it? Now, it's not a very good analogy, because Amazon has no human people that I can see. Has everybody shopped on Amazon? You guys have all shopped there, right? But they're the structure killing the rest of their industry. And they're now backwards engineering a person high touch by buying Whole Foods. So they get it. The world is physical and online. So let's talk about starting with you, Torrye.
So what I can say, again, on behalf of Dr. Pulaski, our superintendent, and our school board, they were very bold, as I can say, within these past 6 months, in the month of February-ish. We did reorg based on the needs and the data trends of our district. So with that, we are currently having those courageous conversations with not just principals, but with our executive team as well, to sustain what we're going through at this moment in time. Is it uncomfortable? Of course it is. Is it shifting their learning? Definitely. However, that is based on the needs of our customers, as you would say, because I believe what our former presenter mentioned not too long ago is that you have all this data, but what are you doing with it to make sure that it's being effective? And with that, we realize that our parents and our students are our customers. So we are also looking at our marketing strategy. We have had an influx of students based on the innovative and bold initiatives that we're implementing to try to recuperate our students and to try to keep the ball moving. Because at the end of the day, we are in the business of servicing students. So with that, we do have to be innovative in our approaches, whether it's hybrid, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person. So with that, we do have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, I love that you're doing that. You know, I love the thinking here today in Arkansas, right? You guys are all thinking about how you can lead. The main point of this conversation was, where are you leading to? And we have found as Learning Council that the majority of institutions don't actually know where this ends up. One, because they don't understand technology well enough. Two, because they don't really see what it's going to look like to have a full tech stack. Everything covered. They one-off themselves. And they're built in their mind to the manufacturing model, and they can't change that. But you're starting to think about this. You're leading from a business perspective. I love you. Okay? You're thinking of how it's going to be. So are you. Okay. So this is going to flash back on humans. So we have just a couple more minutes. So I'm going to go quickly through you guys, right? Changing human minds. Letting them go through periods of grief at the loss of their old life. Which everyone went through during the pandemic, did we not? Okay. How do you do that?
I think it's important to acknowledge that. A lot of times we don't say, hey, any professional development I start with teaching's hard. Like, this is hard. It's not easy work. It's very rewarding, but it's not easy. Change is not easy. And there's fear involved in that, there's worry involved in that, and I don't think you move people towards new habits of mind or thinking about things in a different way if you don't acknowledge, one, the work and efforts that they've done up to this point. Even if it wasn't the right thing, you had the best intentions moving in your efforts. Acknowledge that, and then acknowledge that it's scary. And acknowledge all of the growth areas of there's things I don't know. There's things my superintendent doesn't know that we need to learn and grow in those areas as well. And so if you show yourself as part of the team, part of the group that needs to learn, that needs to change, that needs to do things differently, I think that opens up people's minds and hearts to, okay, let me hear you out. Let me see what you have to say, because it's not just me that's feeling this way, and helps people to be more honest about where they are and what they need to be able to move forward in a productive way.
I love that so much, Shana. Imagine if we had an entire government that was willing to learn. That they stood up there on national television and said, I don't know what I'm really doing, I'm learning with you. If they did that, we would be like, that's my person, right? Would we not? But no, they're not doing that. But so we don't get into that. Let's talk about your leadership then.
So one of the things that we did when I became superintendent last year, we did a district-wide book study called Fearless Schools. And part of the essence of that is building trust with people. So I do believe students are our customer, but as leaders, our staff members are our customer too. So one of the things as leaders that we've definitely learned that our staff have options, especially in Central Arkansas. They can go from one district to the next.
And you steal from each other, right?
Well, we borrow because they may be with me one year and then come to them the next year. But they have options. And so, and I always tell my district leaders that we always talk about effective teachers. Effective teachers need effective leaders. Leaders who are going to invest in them, support them, and grow the people that report to them. And so in the book study, it talks about the journey and building trust. But it talks about how a lot of times leaders bring in the people who are directly impacted by that journey, by the decision at the very end. And so in order to really build relationships, to encourage buy-in, you have to have the people who are going to be directly impacted at the table at the beginning of the journey, and you all take that journey together. And so I think all of it starts with the relationship with staff members, with your students, with your parents, and taking the time to get to know people and letting them get to have the time to get to know you, and then you all make those decisions together based on what's best for your students for that year, not what's best for them last year or the year before based on one assessment. It's based on the needs for this current year.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I love that whole thing. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, what's your opinion on this? Like the people leadership?
Yeah, I think he took it from me right there, but it's basically, you have to build relationships with the people, and I've been in a lot of institutions and I learned something every single minute of every single day. And one thing that I've learned is not one formula works in every school and every district, and you've got to adjust. There are times you have to go 100 miles an hour, and there's times you need to go 1 mile per hour, but you need to keep going forward always, but keep pushing it forward, don't give up. But you have to take the time to make the relationships with the staff, because at the end of the day, that's what it all boils down to, is the people. And if you don't have people, you don't have anything. Nothing's going to work. So build those relationships will come back tenfold towards your vision and getting to that point.
Yeah, I like this. I like the fact that post-pandemic, the mood everywhere I go and come to you to wrap us up. You're the batter. All bases are loaded. Is that we realized as humans during the pandemic that humanity is precious to us. We love each other. It's great. Okay, batter up.
I would just say 1, transparency, 2, collaboration, 3, as my colleagues mentioned, just recognizing the reality that we're in, and ensuring that we hear various voices at the table as we continue to move forward and maneuver through this era that we are currently in, because it's no I in this whole process, it's we as we begin to move forward.
Yeah, I love that.